Another month, another wrap up. During the month of February, I finished 10.5 books. You're gonna see. I was in the worst reading slump, which that doesn't seem to work, 10 and reading slump, but I was saved by my 1 week one shelf challenge, which actually I'm missing the green one, but every week I was picking a shelf from a jar and I had to read books solely on that shelf. And since my shelves are divided by genre, it meant that every week I was reading a different genre, and it went well. But every time I feel like it feels torturous, but looking back, I'm like, this is so fun. I should do that more often. It just really doesn't feel like that in the moment. So let's talk about the 10 books because some of them are great. Did it fix my reading slump? No, it did not, but it was still successful in terms of books finished. And we started really strong because I picked the Goblin Emperor, which is a standalone, technically, fantasy, and I loved it. This is a 5-star. I don't have that many 5-stars so far this year, but this was one. It took me by surprise. This had been on my shelf for years, and I don't hear many people talk about it anymore, but I do recommend it. Your following character struggling. They wake up one day and they're told that their father, strange father, that was the emperor, is dead in mysterious accident that killed any of the brothers that he had, and he is now the emperor. So he has to try and become the emperor, try to survive all the political intrigues and figure out who are his friends, allies, I should say, because no friends is an emperor, and his enemies, and try to survive. And you're following him day to day. So I feel like that gave me a little bit of cozy vibes. You probably will not agree, but that's okay. And I found myself really attached to him and just seeing him struggle. The only thing is there are a few things that are complicated. So it's not necessarily the most beginner-friendly fantasy because of that, but I still think it would still be somewhat beginner-friendly. It's just that some of the characters, their titles, like in court, are kind of long and complicated. That always kept me confused. I feel like as an audiobook it would probably make it worse, but maybe not. I would at least know how to pronounce them. And then there are a few sections, dialogues are told like Old English, and English is my second language, and I feel like even though, like, sure, context clue, you can figure out what they're saying, it's still kind of hard and slows you down a little bit, but it's just a couple sentences, so it's not the end of the world. And yes, I ended up being really invested. I was really sad that actually it ended and it was a standalone. I feel like I complain there aren't enough standalone in fantasy, but then I complain when there are some. The good ones are never stretched. That's the problem. I wanted more from him. And yes, really attached, really invested, really enjoyed it. And I decided to continue during that week to pick up the companion novel. It's technically not, you know, the follow-up. It's still a standalone, so it works. The only thing is you're following my least favorite character of that book. Doing an investigation. He is the witness for the dead, that's his title, and he goes to investigate a murder mystery. This woman who was found drowned, and he's doing his job. The problem, like I said, is that I was not emotionally invested because I really didn't care. The reviews are really positive, so it's clearly a me thing, but it was fine, just not a favorite. This was a 5-star, this was a 3-star. It was fine, just, again, the whole time I was like, I would rather follow this character all over again. So no hard feelings, but you know, not my favorite. Then I picked up a sci-fi shelf, which I was happy because one of those shelves, that paper contained 2 shelves. And one of them contained my favorite author, which is Octavia E. Butler, and I only have a couple books left to read by her. This is literally the ugliest cover in history. I feel like they need to reprint all of her books because I love them and I want to own pretty copies, but every time I put that on the screen, everyone is like, what is this? It looks like a weirdly religious book or something. It's not. Well, she mentions that she read the Bible as a kid and it clearly influenced the content of her books. This series is so hard to describe because, quite frankly, if this had been the first series or book I had read by her, I wouldn't have finished it and I would have wondered what the hell is wrong with everyone that loves her, because the content in this, it's just disturbing. The thing is, I read the 3rd and 4th book in this quartet for the challenge because that's what I had left. I'm pausing to mention the titles of the books. So book 3 was Clay's Ark and book 4 was Pattern Master. And the 3rd book is probably my least favorite book by her, and it's completely different. It doesn't seem to be linked to the series much, but you're following this man who went into on a different planet as an astronaut with the team, and then when they came back, they started getting sick, and he's the only one that survived the crash on Earth. Nobody knows, and he's in hiding because he's infected by something. And it's yeah, the spread. It feels very post-apocalyptic setting, and then the 3rd book, like I was saying, is really isolated, but there's just so much grape and essay and incest. I don't know what is wrong with this series. That's what I meant by like the religious drama is clearly. And then the fourth book, I can't say anything because it's like the accumulation of like the 3 books. And yeah, there's no way I can describe this, but I can say that it's following people with powers, because again, that's what happens in the first book, and you're just following the rest of the series. What's interesting about the author is that every book tends to follow different characters. It's obviously still Link, but it makes them really self-contained. Obviously, I would not recommend randomly just reading one, but you could. You would wonder what's going on, but you probably would no matter what. So yeah, the third book, I'm giving it 3 stars. The fourth one, 4 star. And I don't know. Don't start with this series. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. Don't start with it. I know some of you did. You might still enjoy it, but don't. Please don't do that to yourself. But yes, I love her. I'm really selling it right now, but trust me. Please trust me about this. Start with Kindred. I'm planning a video. I promise, reviewing all of her books once I'm done. I have 2 more left, but please don't start with the Paternist series. Don't do it to yourself. So, then I picked up another sci-fi shelf. I was not happy. I was not happy because I was struggling, but I picked this one book because this was the shelf that contained a lot of the books that I wanted to read this year, and that's why the shelf was a mess, by the way. I promise I'm planning on reorganizing my bookshelves. I should be ashamed of being a booktuber, but I just shoved them there for the challenge, and I ended up picking up that shelf. So, Riot Baby. This one I had bought because it had been a nominee for a bunch of awards, and it just said that this was this woman that had a thing, like a superpower. And this is a short book, and it started so good, because yes, the main character does have a thing. She's a child. She can kind of perceive people's future. I don't feel like I had really mentioned that in that vlog, but then it becomes also about her brother, and I lost interest completely. The themes are important and interesting because you're following, they're both Black in the US, and I think they're in New York, I want to say. I don't think it says so, but it's showing how their childhood was destroyed due to racism, and there's also comments about the justice system and the violence, and it was interesting. But yeah, the second half, it becomes more magical realism, and I don't care for magical realism, so it felt not enough sci-fi. I wanted more about the thing, the power kind of thing, and it just goes in a weird direction. So yeah, it wasn't for me. I feel like I wasn't the right audience for it, but not bad. I gave it 3 stars because again, the beginning was really strong. I read so quickly the first like 75 pages, and then I just struggled to finish it. And then I went with this book that was highly recommended by so many of you, The Calculating Stars. This is my second book by the author, and again, I feel like both of these, okay, they were not true sci-fi. It's not true. They're still sci-fi, but not... They were a mix, okay? This one was like sci-fi magical realism. This one is sci-fi historical fiction. And again, I'm not a historical fiction girly. I'm just not. But it said that it was similar to Hidden Figures. I've only watched a movie, but I like that. But this one is following a white woman, which feels like the vibes were completely different. You follow this woman. She was a pilot during the Second World War, and then the apocalypse happens. So again, beginning, super invested because it starts with, do you remember where you were when the meteor hit? So it starts with like meteorite hitting the earth. So up my alley, but then, like I said, it becomes more about her trying to be recognized as a pilot, as a woman, and wanting to become an astronaut and just struggling. She also has anxiety, so a little bit of representation for that. But yes, I just struggle more and more. But the beginning, loved it, loved it. It just becomes too historical fiction for me. And I really didn't like the way the Betty situation concluded. Keeping it vague for spoilers, but it felt a bit... Anyway, the rest of the series, they are apparently going into space more, which I feel like maybe I should give it a shot. I don't know. Let me know. My library, I wish they had the audiobooks. They only have the ebooks. So if I do continue, I'll pick it up from there instead of buying a copy, just in case it's not to my taste. But yes, the beginning was really, really good. I feel like it's making me realize that I do love sci-fi, just not the ones on my shelf apparently. But yes, not bad. I'm giving it 3 stars because of the Betty situation. But if you like historical fiction, I would highly recommend giving that one a shot. Okay, I also listened to some audiobooks before we go back to more physical ones. I finished part of your world, which this is a romance book, and I started just before Valentine's Day because I wanted to feel extra single. It worked. I was expecting the worst because in audiobook romance, I expected to cringe at the narration because I feel like I get secondhand embarrassment fairly easily, especially romance. I don't read a ton of it, but this one made me giggle and kick my feet. I was very much invested and the narration was done well. Like, I really expected the worst and I really enjoyed it so much so I actually put the second book on my waiting list at the library. It says like 20 weeks that I have to wait, but that's okay. I will wait happily because, again, this was great. For once, I feel that I actually like the dude. I feel like so many romance books that I see recommended, I can't stand him in the relationship. Like, I know there has to be some kind of conflict. I get that. But like, whenever they cross a line, I can't help but imagine if this was my friend, I would tell her to dump him so quickly. Like, I'm thinking the Unhoneymooners, for example. I know, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember 3 times he went too far. I would have told her to dump him. So like, by the 3rd time, I don't care if you're happy together. You shouldn't be together. Like, I cannot root for you anymore. Or even probably one that I don't hear anyone say anything negative about is the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. You get like family vibes, found family vibes, you get witchy vibes, and I really wanted to root for the romance, but there is one fight, like their first fight, I can spoil in the comment section, but he says something that, you know, there's the line, and he didn't tiptoe the line, he went way past it, and I instantly was like, I am done. So like, I cannot root for the romance anymore. Anyway, in this case, he didn't do anything wrong, so I was like, yay, I can finally root for one. Unfortunately, the female character was the one annoying me. I get it. You know, again, you have her. She is very privileged, rich woman who is a doctor from big city, and then he is from small town. And again, I get that you have to have some conflict, but I just wanted to shake her. Like, girl, please. He's almost a little too perfect, but again, I was happy to read that around Valentine's Day, kicking, giggling, and just enjoying the little banter. So there's probably like an hour or two through the book that I just wanted to just, you know, but the rest of the time I was very happy to read this and I recommend it. I don't read a ton of romance and I enjoy that one. So doesn't mean you're going to feel the same, but you know, giving it a shout out. I also read an ARC, so an advanced reader copy of The Dead Cat Tale Assassins. I thought this was coming out much later this year, but apparently it's in August, so I don't know. I tried to look if I was allowed to talk about it. I didn't find anything, so we're gonna do it anyway. So this is my second book that I finished by him, and then 3rd attempt. I also read one novella. I didn't love it. It's under 200 pages, no, 225 pages, I think. So it's quite short, and it is fantasy. And I feel like the author is really great at creating these world and these magic system. But compared to a Master of Jinn, that one I gave 5 stars to. Love that one. But it's like a murder mystery in a fantasy world. So it makes sense that you only get like little hints of what's going on. And in this one, I feel like the plot didn't compensate for the fact that we didn't get enough. I feel like everything else was super interesting, and you're following this main character who's dead. I feel like it starts with her just being dead, so you're like, cool, and she's an assassin, and she's sent on this mission to kill someone, and then she doesn't do it for reason. Again, don't want to spoil it because it's 225 pages. So you're following her afterwards, trying to discover why she was sent to kill that person and the consequences for that. Unfortunately, like I said, you don't get enough of what's interesting, plus a sense of humor. The main character annoyed the crap out of me. You know, like the edgy kind of teenager sense of humor? You get that. And sometimes it works, but this time was just super grating. I could not get into it. So unfortunately, it wasn't for me. I also finished the 100 Years War on Palestine. I wanted to inform myself more on the topic because frankly, I was completely ignorant. And this was a nonfiction. It was completely different from the other nonfictions that I read because it was a lot more like history heavy. So it took me literally 21 days that I had it from the library to go through it. But it was really, really interesting. I had heard that it was one of the best on the topic, and I did enjoy it for what it was. I learned a ton. So if you have any other recommendations on the topic, I would love for you to leave them in the comment sections, but I would recommend this one. And then the fourth week for the challenge of 1 week, 1 shelf was nonfiction. And I picked this one book, which it's not big, but it took me the whole week because, listen, I cannot binge read nonfiction books. Well, some of them, yes, but like not this one. This is The 7 Necessary Sins for Women and Girls. And it was really interesting. I didn't realize this was the same author that wrote, I think it's Hymens and Headscarves. I haven't heard people mention that one, but not this one. I had seen a clip of her on social media and decided to pick it up. And this was really good. I really enjoyed it. Through the 7 deadly sins, she decides to write the ones that, again, women and girls should do in order to dismantle patriarchy. What does she says defying, disobeying, and disrupting patriarchy. So you have anger, tension, profanity, ambition, power, violence, and lust. And I really enjoyed some of the chapters more than others. Like, I know I really liked anger and attention, for example. You can see, like, I start with a million post-its. She's very, very quotable. She's a journalist, so I feel like it is reflected in the way she writes. And it's a mix of her personal experiences. She lived a crazy life. I talked about it in that blog, but a Muslim woman who was born in Egypt, she lived in Saudi Arabia, which is where she really discovered feminism, and then she moved to the UK and now lives in the US. She talks about her own life experiences, and it's intense. So she is a journalist, an activist, and she just likes to talk about the topic in a way that is really impactful. She is also the one that started the hashtag, you know how there was the hashtag Me Too, and she started one hashtag Musque Me Too. I don't know if you pronounce that in English like that, but in French you would. So that's the hashtag she started after her experience getting essayed whenever she went to pilgrimage. Let's go with that. So Muslim people are supposed to, once in their life to do it. And whenever she went, she was essayed twice. She was 15, plus she was all dressed, not that there's any, but yes, she talked about that, and obviously a lot of controversy online from that. So yeah, super interesting book. I feel like I wish this kind of content was available. Like, I had read this as a teenager. I obviously it's still impactful as an adult, but I feel like it would have opened my eyes. I feel like at this point, most of this is not something that I don't already know, unfortunately. But yes, I feel like this would have been really empowering as a teenage girl. So yes, would recommend that one. And I'm planning on reading more by the author. And I'm currently reading or listening. This is what I'm saying and a half, because I have less than 2 hours left into this audiobook. And I really wanted to try and sneak it in, but whatever. Cackled. I wanted to talk about it because so far I'm really enjoying it. I thought this was cozy. It's not cozy. It's horror. I mean, kind of cozy, because you have this woman. She's driving me nuts because she just got broken up with. Her boyfriend of 8 years left her, and she lived in New York with him. She thought he was the one, and then he dumps her, and she goes to this small town to become a teacher and just hide away. And it feels cozy because, again, small town and witchy vibes, but it's definitely horror. If you don't like spiders, don't read that book. Don't do it. And yeah, she was driving me nuts at first because woman, please stop calling him. This is embarrassing. But I realized at this point that it is part of the plot. It's why it's there. I'm glad I continued because I wasn't sure, because I feel like at this point that specific trope books to grab out of me. But yes, I have less than 2 hours left. I'm 84% into it. And I'm hoping for the best, but so far it's good. So far it's good. So hopefully the ending makes it worth it. But yeah, that's where I'm at for the month of February. I feel like so far this year has been all over the place. A few good books, but overall it's been a little bit disappointing, especially that 2 arcs so far, 2 advanced reader copies, books that I really wanted to read ended up being kind of disappointing. I'm hoping that the second half of the year, wow, Emily. There's more than a half left, but the rest of the year is going to be more impressive. Actually, which books are you waiting for, the release? Because I'm waiting for the new Emily Henry, for example, and there's a few books that I have pre-ordered. I haven't been buying books, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed. I haven't been posting book hauls because I have bought 0 books that are published so far this year. None. I just have not been in the mood to go shopping at all. So hopefully that also changes. Maybe that's going to help with the slump, because I feel like sometimes buying books makes you want to read them more. So we'll see. I'm still trying to declutter my shelves first, and then we'll go a little crazier after. But yeah, that's what we're at. That's where we're at the point. this is where we're at so far this year. So not bad, not bad. I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. I feel like March is going to be a better month. If you haven't seen my TBR, I'll put it on the screen. I have some books that I'm hoping to give 5-star for sure on there. And yeah, would love to hear the books you have finished, the best book especially. Anything that you think I or anyone else would love to also pick up, definitely recommend them in the comment section. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.